Good morning or good afternoon, and welcome to the August 9th meeting of the Auburn Board of Selectmen. This meeting is being recorded, and in accordance with the new Mass General Law, it is operating via a hybrid model. For those who want to join by phone, you can call in at 1-408-650-3123 with access code 235-235-861 or at global.gotomeeting.com/join/235-235-861. We have an executive session scheduled for 6 p.m. Under Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21. A motion would be in order to go into executive session in accordance with Mass General Law to deliberate upon matters which, if done in open meeting, could have a detrimental effect on the position of the town regarding strategy with respect to litigation. To come out of executive session and reconvene in an open meeting. Following a second to the motion, a roll call vote is required, so I'll entertain that motion.
I'll make the motion that we go into executive session.
Second. Motion's been made and seconded by roll call vote. Mrs. Ruffley?
Yes.
Mr. Bertheum?
Yes.
Mr. Carpenter?
Yes.
Vice Chair Wren?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. We are in executive session. All right, welcome back to the August 9th, 2021 meeting of the Auburn Board of Selectmen. Call this meeting to order at 7:00 p.m. Hopefully there's no backlash there. I see two people on the call. Oh, I'm sorry. We are conducting this meeting via the new Mass General Law, so it is a hybrid model with people participating remotely and in person. For those wishing to participate at home, you can join us by calling in at 1-408-650-3123 using access code 235-235-861 or join by computer at global.gotomeeting.com/join/235-235-861. With that, can we all stand and salute the flag?
Pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I see that we have two people calling in. Are either of those callers here for public comment? Yes, or applicants.
Because I'm not sure who the applicants are. Maybe then ask if there's any applicants in the audience that are being interviewed. We have 3.
All right, seeing none. Do we have applicants in the audience that are being interviewed? Okay, we have a few there.
Okay.
All right. So we have our joint session with the Library Board of Trustees. So with that, I will turn things over to the Library Board to open your meeting.
Very good. So I will do a roll call. Matt Toth.
Present.
Suzette Dowd. Present. Jennifer Shea. Here. Paula Melican. Here. And I'm Mary DeCourcy, present. Thank you.
So we will start with an update from you. So what are the, we have our applicants in the packet here. Has the Library Board of Trustees started the interview process or met with any of the candidates so far?
No.
No. Okay.
We have not.
With that, so we'll start going in alphabetical order. Are all 3 candidates here? I'm sorry. Let's see. 1.
We were informed that one wasn't coming, but not which one.
Okay. I'm sorry. Would you mind stating your names for the record? Okay. And Chris, go ahead. All right. Thank you. Yeah. Yeah. Appears we only have the 2, so I guess we'll start with Erica, if that's all right. Sure. Thank you.
Want them all up there?
Welcome.
Better if we have all 3? No?
We only have the 2 candidates here.
Just make sure.
The second piece, I just didn't hear.
Make sure we're confirming that these are the applicants from the library board of trustees, not from license applications.
Okay.
Just in case there's any confusion with the audience.
Very good. Do you want to do that, or do you want me?
You can do that, sure. We only have the two.
The town manager has just asked if we would like to confirm that you're here to interview for the library board of trustees as a board member, and you're not here to apply for a license.
No.
Okay.
It's for the board.
Very good.
Sorry, can you please state your name and address again for the record?
Sure. Erica Breesacker.
So, have you been given the questions in advance by, no? Okay.
Was I supposed to be?
Yes.
I don't think so.
We've done it that way in the past, at least at the last meeting. But then we only had one applicant in the past. So I will turn this over to the Board of Trustees to ask questions first.
Very good. Can I ask a question? On your resume, it says you live at 486 Chandler Street in Worcester?
No, that's my professional resume, so that's where I work. I work at Worcester State, and that's
Okay.
the address there. I live in Auburn.
Okay, and are you a registered voter in Auburn? Thank you.
Excellent.
I didn't even remember that was my address there, so sorry about that if there was
That's
confusion.
okay.
We can start.
Yeah, I'll start. In 2020, the Board of Trustees completed our 5-year strategic plan. A major goal on that plan is to increase equity, diversity, and inclusion in the library. Can you talk about any initiatives that you would propose, or any experience you have in ensuring equity and safety for people who might not feel that way?
Well, I think the big thing is really focusing on recruitment and talking to the community and figuring out where we can draw more diverse people from who could serve, either the board or other town boards, but also for programming at the library, what types of library programming they'd be looking for, what sorts of resources they need, and also then what they kind of want to see reflected at the library, whether it's just about as a community space or collections or things like that, as well as workers too. And so the big thing, I think, is about connecting to the community and drawing in as many people and participants as possible. And that's something that I think a lot of diversity measures try to do. I know at the university, where I've served on a variety of hiring committees, that's the big thing, is about trying to figure out who the constituencies are, trying to figure out what stakeholders want, and then also figuring out exactly how we serve them, where people don't, and taking almost like a status, I guess, is the way to think. And that's kind of the big thing that I sort of see possibly serving on the trustees board. With me, it has a person to go to talk to, visually connecting to people in the community, and even going to the people I know who feel like they don't know what's going on. I know a lot of times it's easy for that to happen, especially in the last year and a half, where, programming has been different than it has been in the past. And so I think that's the other way too, in terms of thinking about inclusion, how to have programming across a variety of rather than using jargon, but a variety of formats, whether we can have some digital formats, we call it modalities in teaching, but, sort of thinking about online programs for accessibility for people who can't leave or might not be able to participate physically in library programming, but wanting to be able to have them participate too, as well as then how that can complement what we do in person. So that's a very unorganized answer, but hopefully I think I touched on all.
Can you just expand a little bit on what type of, were you thinking of sending out a survey to get information when you talked about recruiting, and what types of questions would you ask in order to gauge how to best support communities?
Sure. I mean, surveys are definitely one way to do that, but I think a lot of people tend to get survey fatigue. I know, that's something we all kind of deal with, whether it's reaching out to voters, how to capture them, how to get them. Is it mailing? Is it calling? Is it, standing on the corner and waving wildly to get people to come and talk to you? So surveys are one way, but I don't think that's the only way. I think it's also about sort of either connecting through schools, connecting through different programs and networks that already exist, whether it's through, the reading programs that I know school-age kids have, or sports teams, and all the different ways that the community interacts and comes together. Surveys are one way. It could also just be, conversations and even almost like a listening tour in a way. I know that sounds very strange. A listening tour that comes to you, maybe.
Okay.
And the benefit is that it is a visual place where people can go. They know where the library is. It's not like trying to find all these disparate groups of people who don't know how to come together. So it could even be, Thursday nights at Pappas when there's the concerts and the farmers market, having a table there to start that and saying, hey, what do you want to see at the library? And even a suggestion box. I know it seems kind of like back to basics, but sometimes that's what works. And so in terms of asking more questions, I guess it gets to what do you want to know? And I don't know that there's a blanket way to figure that out. I think depending on where you're doing it, that changes the questions you ask. So if it's, let's go to soccer Saturday and figure out what library questions you want to ask, you're going to be tailoring it to what you need. Versus going to maybe the farmer's market where, you might have different groups of people to interact with that might frame the types of questions you're asking, whether it's accessibility or representation or something like that.
Thank you.
I guess I ask a more mundane question, but in what ways have you been a library user in Auburn?
In Auburn, I have 2 kids in the school district. One's in college now. I kind of keep forgetting that. But I have one, my daughter's going to be in 1st grade at Packagug. My son's going to be at the middle school in 7th grade. I use the library myself, even though, I have Worcester State Library at my disposal, but that's more like on the clock work stuff versus going and being part of the community, bringing the kids, having them have their own library card. So I've used the library as a patron. My husband uses the library as well. And it's, we're a big reader family. So that's one thing. I've also served in a university library capacity on the committee there when I first started at Worcester State, and it's just a little bit of a different entity, a community library versus, say, a research library or a university library, even if some of the collections overlap a little bit sometimes. And so as a user, I see it from all different age groups and, different needs. My daughter thinks she can read all of the encyclopedias. Not quite yet. We're getting there, but not quite yet. So having her collections, not knowing exactly what types of stories she likes versus my son, who's in middle school, who kind of has his tastes figured out, but also is open to other ideas. My oldest child, who is usually not at home, but when he comes back, we'll still go and he's looking for other things than just your typical books. And so I think the nice part is I kind of see it from all different vantage points and age groups and reasons for going to the library. For my daughter, it's just, woohoo, I get to go to the library and fill a bunch of books, and we hope we... it's about testing out books he wants before we go and buy them, that kind of thing. So.
Thank you.
Why do you want to serve on the board of trustees? What's your motivator?
I think the library is a really important center of town. I mean, it physically is in the center of town to an extent. I'm not from Massachusetts or Auburn originally. I'm actually from Wisconsin. And the library is one of the first places that we kind of gravitate toward because that's where community postings are. That's where kids can get connected. That's where you can really figure out what's going on and what the character of a community is, the things that are important to them, as well as, you know, what's happening on Thursday night at Pappas. Where is Pappas, right? And just those resources for, you know, access to internet, access to resources, or, you know, even meeting with your representative, right? I know Paul Frost has town meeting times there. And so it's like being able to get a sense of community, and I think it's a really important one that gets overlooked a lot, and that features pretty heavily in my life and in my family's life. So that's the reason.
What are you currently reading?
What am I reading? Well,
For pleasure, not research.
that's the hard part. I'm writing a book, so I'm trying to also not, you know, just read. But I'm reading a couple mysteries. I really like A.M. Stewart, and I've also, you know, you have your typical ones that you go back to all the time. Anything by Lucy Montgomery, because I'm going to out myself as an Anne of Green Gables person, even though my kids find it boring. But you know, whatever. And I also have a couple books on the list that, of course, now it's escaping me the titles because I've been writing all day, so I apologize. Yeah, mysteries, the light stuff, you know, not the deep philosophical things.
I don't have any questions for you. They've done very well by what I might have asked. Thank you for your time and for coming.
Could you talk about technology in libraries and kind of the evolution you see them taking on?
Absolutely. I mean, on one hand, as we've seen over the last year, things are a lot more connected, and getting access to internet, I mean, the library being a place where that's always available is very helpful, especially for families that don't have access to it all the time. And it's also a good place too to kind of investigate how to use technology for, you know, other groups of people who maybe get their first computer and don't even know where to start, what to do, how to search a library catalog. And we are just going to be increasingly more connected. I think that's pretty clear. The technology that goes into how to hook into, say, other lending networks, right? I know Worcester State's Library just joined Helm, the higher ed library system in the state. I know that Auburn is connected to other town libraries in the region. And so I think some of those connections are going to continue to grow, are going to be strengthened, might change in terms of digital lending, in terms of, you know, either digital books or other materials like newspaper subscriptions, things like that. And I'm not quite sure the direction that it's going to go. I like the idea of being able to bring in people who are the professionals, particularly for, you know, information literacy and stuff like that, that have kind of a pulse on where the technology is going, how it's being used. Is it about data readers, or is it about, you know, rental for laptops? Is it going to go somewhere even further than that? I know there are apps that you can, you know, get like almost like Kindle books for the library, and where that goes, what that means. Community aspect of it, you know, the connections to asking the librarian how maybe librarian chat works, and that for, again, people who maybe can't come to the library for whatever reason, you know, can still connect to a librarian, can still connect to some of those resources, ask questions, get assistance. And I think it remains to be seen exactly how all of that's going to manifest. So.
Any other board questions? Turn it over to you.
All right, thank you. So I have to apologize for, you know, on the first hand, for putting you on the spot right away. Normally we would have done you both, but the board has set questions that we usually send to you in advance. This is my first time working with another board and doing a joint committee, so I didn't realize that there were questions that you wouldn't be getting, and now you don't have the, you didn't see them in advance. So I'm sorry, but you did well. With that, do board members have any questions? Mr. Carpenter.
You answered my first question, so that was good. So I've never met or read a book about an author who doesn't thank a librarian almost in the first two sentences of an acknowledgement. So I think that's a good place to start, someone who needs to research information. As wonderful as our search engines are, you can't really replace the human person who actually lives in the stacks and knows the materials. So as wonderful as our computers are, I'm more of a hardcover book fella. I don't really like a lot of the technology, but it is important for us. How do you see the role of advocacy as a trustee? Because that is also something that was identified in the 5-year plan that the library trustees came up with.
So, I mean, in a lot of ways, the trustees are trying to, well, I mean, the library's in trust, right? And the trustees work for the community to try and widen accessibility for everybody, whether it's technology. And I agree with you. I'm a big fan of In the Stacks. I'm a history professor, right? So I want to send my students in and say, now you have the serendipity of finding the book next to the book you thought you were looking for. And it's hard to recreate that in terms of technology. And so being able to think about the tech side of things, but that there isn't a one-size-fits-all for everybody, that there isn't one way to do it, and that this is the way that it has to go. I think the Board of Trustees, because there's several people and several voices with viewpoints, do a lot to kind of represent what the community might want, what the community might need, and that they are in a space where they can be the voice for people who don't even know how to connect to, say, the Board of Selectmen or other boards in town or even boards in other towns, to sort of figure out exactly what issues are needed, whether it's a financial issue, whether it's just bringing voice to this issue is happening, this is, well, how do we reconcile technology with physical copies of books, right? I prefer physical books. It engages different parts of your brain if we want to get really technical, but at the same time, it's making sure that we try to do as much for as many people as possible. And advocacy is really important because it's one more voice, one more, entity that's trying to get resources. And so as a trustee, the job of the trustees is to make sure that the library gets those resources or as many resources as possible, whether it's advocating for longer hours or whether it's advocating for more staff, right? It's one of those things where it's pushing and really trying to be the voice of the library, if we had to personify it, right, is the most important part because it's a part that's overlooked a lot. I know it's easy to sort of say, well, you can get that on the Google, you can search it on the Twitter, you can do all those things, you can just ask somebody, but there's just no way to replace the experience of being in the stacks, right? There's just no way to replace the learning that goes into kids just going and being turned loose on books. Go look at the covers, figure out how that works. What do you like? What do you want to see? And so I think the biggest thing is to just be an authentic voice and make sure that then the trustees too can be a place where people can go and say, can you argue for this and get a sense of, is this something that the entire community wants? Is this something that maybe this portion of the community needs? And we actively need to advocate for that to the expense of something else maybe for a while. And I think it's the job of the trustees to kind of weigh all of those things because we're never all going to get everything we want, but to at least make a good faith effort to try and get as much as possible for the institution itself.
Can you give some examples of how you would advocate for the library?
On one hand, I think it's advocating even to the public that the library is there thriving, that it's a dynamic part of the community to say, no, we want to hear from you. So getting participation is one step of advocacy that, again, kind of gets overlooked a little bit. On the other hand, it could be something to going to the selectmen, to going to maybe the state house itself and saying, we need more resources, we need more money devoted this direction, we need more people, we need more training, we need more space. and that it really just depends on exactly what the issue is to determine what type of advocacy we're talking about. Is it a writing campaign? Is it trying to get signatures for something? Or is it taking it higher and having to actually go talk to people and knock on doors? And so in a lot of ways, advocacy takes many forms. It's not just about, I believe in the library. It really is. There are action steps that have to be taken, but it really is about figuring out what those action steps are. And maybe doing it in concert as a group. If you I don't know. I mean, it really, some of it's awareness, but some of it is, sort of taking on the risk of saying, no, we really actually need to go and fight for something like this.
Thank you.
Other board members?
Great questions.
I stole them from that 5-year plan. Really good plan.
Other questions or comments? I just have one that I've heard everyone that introduced. So I noticed that you said that you would be willing to serve on other boards or commissions. Have you looked at any others that interested you?
Sorry, I couldn't.
I noticed that you checked off that you would be willing to serve on other boards or commissions. Have you had a chance to look at any that might interest you, or given any thought to what other might be your second choice?
The History Commission, obviously, because I'm a historian.
I figured with the...
And I do public history too. I teach a lot of museum classes. I'm on the Massachusetts History Alliance Board of Directors, on the advocacy committee, actually. And so it's kind of that's the obvious natural fit because it's my comfort zone. But outside of the comfort zone, I mean, those are probably the two that stuck out. Planning and zoning is something that everybody gets interested in, and it has a really real physical impact on the community and on the direction that Auburn will go next. And, I like to get involved in general, so I'm usually open to suggestion, which is always a dangerous thing because then people take that as a yes to everything.
Well, thank you very much. Seeing no other comments, I think we can move on to the next applicant.
Thank you. Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much.
Thank you very much. Nice meeting you, Erica.
Mr. Chairman, before we get to the next person, can we just ask, is Amy Taylor going to come for an interview, or, because she's not the person that would be representing?
We were not told we weren't told who withdrew.
So, well, I can tell you it's not Amy.
What?
It's not Amy.
We can give her until, I guess, Chris. Go from that target.
Through the chair, if I can, Amy Taylor was aware of the interview. She had indicated to my office that she was going to be participating. She had moved to call me in person. I don't know if she's having any trouble. Sharon has tried to call her and no makeup. So I make one of two suggestions. You can't vote anyway until the meeting's probably posted for a vote on the 13th. So that's another opportunity to see if she'd like to come in. And I believe your other applicant was...
Yeah, just stepped out.
That his name is Chris. And then the fourth applicant, whose name and number call notified our office that she's moving out of town. She's moving. She notified our office that she was withdrawing and she was moving.
You want to check? Break for a recess.
You may want to just break and then you can come back for a decision.
Well, I know she applied previously, so.
Yes, and she was very interested also.
He is. We watched him
Was?
step out.
You can ask if he's here, just to verify, but he did walk out.
Oh, is Chris back in the room? No. Okay. Yeah, I didn't think he had come back. So we can take a brief recess. I don't know how that works with a joint meeting. If you need to take a vote and then we would, or how that process works. I would assume that's how it goes.
Or you need to vote on a recess?
Right, it's just until Chris comes back.
Do you support that, Keith? Okay, yep, we're fine.
Okay. Yeah, motion for 10-minute recess. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? It's unanimous. All right. 7:36. All right, we are back from our 10-minute, a little bit less recess. The other candidate, Chris McCoy, was not in the building, but at this time, I am going to ask, because we're expecting another candidate. If anyone else who is interviewing for the position on the Library Board of Trustees is present or on the call and ready to speak.
I'm here.
Oh, okay. Is this Amy?
Yeah, it's really hard to hear you.
Okay. I'm sorry. You must have missed it earlier. Great. Thank you so much. I'm glad we have another candidate on. Okay. With that, I'll turn things over to the Library Board of Trustees to start their questions.
Hi, Amy. Welcome to our interview session. This is Mary DeCourcy. I just had a question related to equity and diversity and inclusion. A major part of our strategic plan in 2020 was to ensure that we have effective equity, diversity, and inclusion in order to welcome all patrons in the community. If you were a Board of Trustee member, what would you propose that we could activities that we could do to increase the equity, diversity, and inclusion? Can you hear me, Amy?
I'm sorry, was that directed towards me?
Yes.
All right, my name is Carol LeBrun. I'm from the Tuttle Post.
Oh.
It's not even.
That's not even.
No, I'm sorry. You must have misheard because of the whatever problems we're having on our end. No, we're interviewing candidates for the Library Board of Trustees position right now. So I apologize. Your agenda item is not up yet. All right.
Muted.
All right. Seeing as we don't have any candidates at this time, we can invite them back to our next meeting since we couldn't take a vote.
Yes, the team, the Board of Trustees would like to set a time for each candidate at the beginning of the meeting. For instance, like 7:05 for one interview and 7:20 for the second interview. Does everyone agree with that? Mm-hmm. Yeah. And to give the other
Same
two
questions.
candidates, yep, same question.
That works.
She didn't know ahead of time, so we don't feel it.
Same concept.
Right.
Town reach out regarding interest, if they're interested, a time, be here, interview, and vote on the 17th.
Vote on the
13th.
same day.
Right. We'll have the vote then. That works. All right. Does that work for members of the board as well?
Sure, that's fine.
With that, then.
Is it okay if we adjourn?
We
Can I have a motion to adjourn, Board of Trustees? From Suzette, who second that motion?
Second.
Matt, thank you. Thank you for having us. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Give them a moment to clear.
See you guys at our next one. Okay. That just makes it equally more important.
I'll move down one.
Oh, sure. Yeah, I don't think you look like a lion.
Leave it up there and try to confuse people.
We've had that.
Thank you.
Mine is exactly 25 years old because when I was elected to planning board, they told us.
Oh. Where
Still
is
sitting in
yours?
the closet in the planning board room, and I'm like, well, clearly we have a problem with cleaning. But it saved us a few bucks, so
Where is it now?
I think it's there. I don't know.
No, where's? I don't think you're. Dad.
I blame Sharon. She did all.
Oh no, I pulled my own out. I just assumed we had to. Gotcha.
Well, no, the funny thing is on the planning board, you wouldn't have them out because you have the plans everywhere.
Feel like
Could be a
these are
projectile.
exactly.
We good? All right. Going back to our regular agenda, we have public comments, and we do have someone signed up, Ed Adamiak. I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing that. You can step up to the microphone if you'd like.
You might be able to hear him.
Yeah, actually, yeah, if you want to sit up at the table, might be able to better to hear. So we typically give 3 minutes for public comment.
I'm here with my neighbors from Southbridge Street Court, which is, I don't know if you know where that is. It's off of Drury Square. It runs parallel to Southbridge Street. It runs parallel to the bridge. It begins at Town Fair Tire and it dead ends into a ball field area. So we want to just discuss the 200-foot drainage ditch that runs parallel to the road and parallel to the big hill that was created to make the bridge. That the problem is it never drains. It always remains halfway full. And so when we have a big rainstorm, of course, it overflows the street. And staying with the library theme, a river runs through it is what happens to our properties. Comes down my driveway and their driveways, and we have a river running on both sides of the house. We have the houses are built circa 1880. They all have, fieldstone foundations. They all have problems. The only way that drainage just empties is if it, through osmosis, goes under the road and seeps through the soil. And the only way it's going to go is towards our houses and under the roads. So we've had 3 storms this month in 3 weeks. Each of them horrendous rivers, 3 or 4 inches deep, running past both sides of our houses from the overflow of that ditch that is parallel to the road. I've got pictures post-storm. Pass it around. I don't have anything that shows the river flowing, but you can see where 24 hours later how it overflows the ditch and heads towards the homes. And I have pictures 48 hours, which shows the water has sort of receded but not, and then 72 hours post, which is 72 hours post and always, meaning the road is crumbling, the water is always coming up from beneath, we always have potholes full of water, whether it's rained or not, and the drainage ditch is always half full of water because it doesn't drain. The only reason it's half full is because it has seeped through the soil and eventually has got absorbed as far as it's going to go. We just want to seek someone to fix the drainage ditch to get it to actually drain the way it's supposed to. Historically, I know the bridge was built in 1934. Its purpose wasn't for cars. It was for the railroad to go under and for the cable cars to go over, to go from Auburn to Worcester and all of that. I don't know, since 1934, I kind of wonder about the integrity of that bridge, because when a big 18-wheeler goes over, that makes my house rumble. When the train goes by, I don't feel anything. I hear the train. So I kind of wonder about that. But our main issue here is the drainage problem. Every time there's a rainstorm, we get flooded because that's not going anywhere. And it's a safety concern now because in the past 7 years, we now have children on the street under the age of 5. So if you have a ditch that's full of 2.5 feet of water that you really can't see because of the overgrowth, it only takes 2 seconds. The other problem is the health issue that goes with that. Mosquitoes are incredible. We all know about West Nile virus. And we also now have people that have dogs on the street. 1, 2, 3 of, let's say, 3 of the 5 houses, 4 of us are brand new within the past 7 years. 2 of the houses were completely bank-owned, derelict, and my neighbor and I have spent thousands redoing the propities.
I'm sorry, I don't want to cut you off, but I just want to keep with our consistency.
Yeah. So the problem is we need to fix the drainage ditch.
With that, I am going to turn things over to the town manager who has to speak on this beforehand. So.
Great, thank you. It's nice to meet you. Thank you.
Nice to meet you.
I know this was brought to my attention a couple of weeks ago. I believe it was maybe the 3rd week in July.
I think that was me.
You were contacted.
Yeah,
you were contacted Sharon in my office who let me know. And so at the time I had had sent this over to the DPW director, who has been taking a look at it. And there are a couple of issues that I just wanted the board to be aware of. Number one, this is a private street, so the town doesn't own the road, nor any of the maintenance that goes on the road.
I addressed that with him, and he said it was a privately owned street, and he told me that they, quote, plowed it as a favor to us. Well, my answer to that is, if it is a privately owned street, okay, why is there a public baseball field at the end? Why is there a pumping station at the end? And why do the DPW trucks use that road consistently at least 7 or 8 times a day, and it's not a public road, it's a private road?
So if I...
How?
sorry.
I don't
Please.
follow the logic, you know?
Please ask you to direct your questions through the chair and then onto the town manager afterwards.
Sorry.
And just let her.
Sure,
give the
so if I
explanation
can
first.
continue. So it is a private road, but that being said, as the gentleman said, the DPW has plowed in the past. Sometimes we do that with roads, but it is private. Any private road, as you know, legally, any car has the right to pass or repass over a private road. It's doing work on a private road that's different. The field that's at the end of the road, is my understanding, it's not owned by the town, it's owned by the water department. And the station at the end of it is a water pump station, which is a separate entity from the town. It is a town facility. But the water department is their own legislatively created body. They have their own board of directors, and they own property separate from the town of Auburn. So they are the owners of that property at the end of the street. All that being said, the third week of July, when this call initially came in, we were, I don't want to use the word flooded, because I don't mean that to be, to use the wrong word, but we were flooded with floods in town. We had many, many calls because the water levels that we've been experiencing in the month of July are higher than we've ever experienced, at least in the 10 years that I've been here. We've never had that level of water come in that amount of days. So we did have some problems all over town. The short of it is, a lot of these systems aren't built to take that kind of water over a 30-day period. It's like a 100-year flood mark. I mean, they're only built for a certain thing. So that was when the call came in. Like I said, DPW did go out and look at it, and the DPW director has said that they will take a look and see if there's anything they can do to try to redirect the water. Apparently, when they went and looked at it, the water is coming off of Route 12. Again, that's a state road. So where it's coming off of isn't even owned by the town. So as far as making any changes to Route 12, that would have to be the state doing that. So the DPW director is trying to look at all the different engineering aspects of this and see who's responsible and what we could possibly do to try to redirect the water. Now, whether that means highway will be allowed to go onto the private property to do that, or maybe we work with the state to do that. So it is being looked at, but again, the issue is, the first issue was that it was a private road, and second, just to be clear, private roads are, you can't shut down a private road. People can drive over private roads, especially if they go to another location. I think you're probably talking about seeing a lot of trucks that may go there from the water department potentially. Yes. Yeah, so there's a couple issues that we're happy to look at, happy to see if there's anything we can do. The issue appeared to be at first glance that the runoff is coming from Route 12, the way that Route 12 is designed. So that means, it just means a little bit more work for us to look at it. So we're aware of it. We're absolutely going to see if there's anything the town can do, and if not, maybe reach out to the state and see if the state can get involved.
Yes. Just a comment about that, what I know we're overlooking the wetlands, but, and I actually did call the state and try to get an answer to decide who owned that drainage ditch. I also had the railroad out there, and they came and they surveyed it and said it wasn't theirs. I know under the road, I know that belongs to the water department. Under our road is actually a collection of pipes that go to the pumping station for the sewerage. Because last year, one of those pipes broke at 4 o'clock in the morning, and they were there pumping out the drainage ditch because it was now full of sewerage, and putting up the bales and all of that and repairing the pipe. But that's all anybody ever did. And
So the town could have an easement on
I
that.
hear what you're saying about the rain, but I'm telling you that the ditch is always full of water, no matter what, and it doesn't drain anywhere.
So through the chair, we're happy to look at it because there are some engineering things that are here. And again, this wasn't on the agenda tonight.
Right.
We happy to hear about it tonight, but we have already been looking at it for the last couple of weeks we'll continue to see what we can do about it.
Right, yeah, I don't want to continue this because it wasn't an item on the agenda, and we do have to get back to the items that were planned and were advertised as happening tonight. So usually, again, we limit public comment to about 3 minutes, and it does sound like the town is looking into it, so maybe we can get an update at our next meeting and look at potentially putting something on the agenda to talk about this in more detail. I'm sorry, we don't have the time right now to really go in depth, but thank you for signing up for public comment, and hopefully we can look into it and talk further at our next meeting, if possible.
We can do that.
All right. Thank you.
So will someone let us know when that will be coming up on the agenda?
Through the chair, the next meeting that the Board of Selectmen has scheduled is September 13th.
So do you want me to contact you to find out if we're going to be on the schedule for the next town meeting, or?
Well, I'm going to be clear. So through the chair, you'd like us to put it on the agenda. We can put it under Board of Selectmen or Town Manager items. So you don't have to do anything. We can put it on the agenda. As of this evening, there was no request for it on the agenda. I think you had spoken to Sharon, and she said you have to come in and sign up for public comment because it wasn't on the agenda.
Correct.
We can put it as an agenda item. You don't have to worry about it.
Okay, so how would we know when to show up if it's on the agenda?
It's September 13th.
Okay, at the same time?
Yeah, I mean, I would say, yeah.
Yeah.
You can double check our website when we do the posting. The meeting hasn't been posted yet.
Okay. It's
Posted
usually
48
the first
hours
Monday.
before. Yeah, it's posted 48 hours before, but, you can always call our office if you want, just to verify it. If you can't see it on the website, we're more than happy to help.
Okay. We have a lot to tell you about the history of that street in with regard to the town's interventions to the flooding. So historically, we've got a lot to add, that some misadventures by the town to repair the problem. Anyway, thank you.
Thank you. All right. Moving on, under public hearings and presentations, nothing. Communications, we have none. Board of Selectmen general items, we have Auburn Housing Authority town appointed tenant seat and a vote to appoint a candidate until May 20th of 2025. Now, I know we did invite the candidate. There was only one applicant to come in and speak to us. But with our luck with applicants tonight, do you know if there was a response?
Through the chair, Sharon did reach out to the applicant and gave her the information both to come in person and to call in. So you might want to check and see if she is one of the callers. Her name is Sharon Catino.
Yeah, is Sharon?
Oh, I'm sorry, she's right there.
Oh, I'm sorry. Well, in that case, yeah, if you would like to come up and talk with the board. Sure.
And they're welcome to stay. The item will be revisited tonight.
Yeah. Oh. Well, welcome. Thank you for applying.
Hello?
Oh. Sorry, I'm sorry, was this aimed for the Tuttle Post?
Yes, this is Carol LeBrun from the Tuttle Post, yes.
We haven't reached that agenda item yet. I'm sorry if there's still confusion over what's going on.
I have no idea what's going on.
I will call on you in the Tuttle Post when we get to it.
It's the next item.
Oh, it's our next item. Okay, I'm sorry, you are the next item on. Were you able to hear that?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
You're the next agenda item. We have one more before you.
Oh, okay.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
So this was just to ask you to come in to meet with us since you were the only applicant, and I really appreciate you coming in to talk to us. So with that, I'm just going to ask board members if they have any questions or comments.
Just a comment, thank you for stepping up and volunteering.
Mr. Carpenter.
Thank you. So this is your second hearing to get appointed to this seat. I was looking at the Housing Authority, and apparently you were appointed on the 3rd of May, and I noted that there were no questions. So I did some research, and I'm going to ask you, what do you see the role of advocacy of a board member is, both for the community that you represent, which includes families, as well as to the wider community of Auburn?
I just wanted the opportunity to get involved
Okay, thank you.
Do other board members? Well, my question was going to be, what inspired you to apply? But I think you already answered that with that response. So I guess I'll just ask really simple questions. How long have you lived in town?
I've lived in Auburn, well, I lived in, 6, 7 years.
Great.
But I lived in John Village for 2 years.
Have you been involved with any other boards or commissions or anything in town? No, first one. All right, well, welcome. Thank you again for coming in. As we said, you were the only applicant, so this was really just to get to know you a little bit and for us to see you and you to see us. So thank you, we really appreciate you coming in.
Thank you.
Oh, sure. Yeah. So let the record show that Mr. Berthium left the meeting at the end of the joint meeting with the Board of Library Trustees, agenda item 4. Great. So with that, I'll entertain a motion to appoint.
I'll make a motion to appoint Sharon Catino for a term ending May 20th, 2025 to the, I'm losing my place here.
Housing
The
Authority.
Housing Authority. Thank you.
Second.
Motion been made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It's
Abstain.
one abstention from Mr. Carpenter, and it passes. Thank you. Congratulations.
Thank you.
All right, I'm just going to unmute the callers now.
Unmuted.
All right. Carol, we have the common particular license for the Tuttle Post. It's up. Can you hear me? Okay.
Yes, I can hear you.
Great. Thank you. All right. So
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. So members, enclosed in your packets are the recommendations by the DCG. And that, why don't you tell us a little bit about the license that you're applying for?
I am applying for basically to be the primary caterer for the Chester P. Tuttle Post. Looking to run the banquet hall and the dining room solely as myself as the only food prep chef in the kitchen.
All right, thank you. Do board members have any questions or comments? Seeing none, anything? Sidebar. Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion.
I would make a motion that we approve the license, subject to all conditions stated upon it and the conditions of the DCG to be attached, and that all applicable requirements of the state and town and any of its departments, boards, and commissions have been fulfilled. Failure to follow any of these conditions shall invalidate the license and render it null and void.
A second.
Motion been made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It's unanimous. Thank you for coming in. I'm sorry for the confusion.
Oh, thank you.
Next, we have a vote on appointments for election officers for the 2021 through 2022 year. Enclosed are the list of election workers submitted by Town Clerk Deb Grimo.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion that we approve the list as submitted.
Second.
Motion been made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? It's unanimous. All right, request to change the name and owner address information for the flammable storage permit at 321 Southbridge Street in Auburn, Mass. Enclosed in your packet is the letter from the town clerk requesting that the board change the name and owner for the flammable storage permit. Is a representative on the line?
They don't usually show up.
Okay, I just didn't know if that was that last caller that seems to be calling in.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion that we approve the change of name as outlined in the town clerk's, actually yes, it is from the town clerk's memo.
Second.
A motion been made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And it's unanimous. Vote on fall 2021 special town meeting. We vote to schedule the fall 2021 special town meeting on Tuesday, October 26, 2021 at 6 p.m. Motion to open, or a vote to open the warrant on August 16th, 2021, and to close the warrant on Thursday, September 9th of 2021. Does that timeline work for members? Is there a question or comment regarding that?
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion that we open the warrant for the fall 2020 special town meeting on Monday, August 16th, 2021.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None. It is unanimous.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion that we vote to close the warrant for the fall 2020 special town meeting on Thursday, September 9th, 2021. We usually do that at close of business, so 4 o'clock, is that correct? Or do we want it earlier? I don't know.
Motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? It's unanimous.
Now you need to vote to hold a special town meeting on the 26th.
Oh, you're right. We do still need the vote to hold the town meeting on the 26th.
That was my third motion. I took them in reverse order. Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion that we vote to schedule the fall 2020 special town meeting on Tuesday, October 26, 2021 at 6 p.m.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? It's unanimous. All right, gift acceptances. I think I already threw those out. Thanks. We have $80 to the Department of Public Works, DPW, for road repair. By Colin Thomas Strand. Is there a motion?
Motion to accept with gratitude.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? It's unanimous. $100 to the fire department from, I'm sorry for everyone whose name I butchered, Lindell Wisteris.
Motion to accept with gratitude.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? It's unanimous. And $100 to the police department from Jeanette Bedzinski and, Jeanette, that's it. As a thank you.
Motion to accept with gratitude.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? It's unanimous.
Could you take this one out of order because Darlene Gordon's here?
Yes. Can I entertain a motion to move up agenda item 9A?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? It's unanimous.
Through the chair, thank you for taking that out of order. Darlene Coyle's here just in case there are any questions, but this is just a follow-up to a vote that the board took, I believe, at its last meeting to accept and expend the grant, regional grant. And the next step is that we need to have a vote of the board to enter into an IMA, which is an intermunicipal agreement. Excuse me. And through the chair, that because it's a multi-regional agreement, it requires a vote of each Board of Selectmen to enter into it. So we are still reviewing that IMA through Town Council, and Town Council and Darlene have gone back and forth on a couple of items in that Town Council wanted an opportunity to take one more look at it. So he made some changes. We sent them to CMRPC. CMRPC came back. There's still a couple changes that Attorney Hennigan would like to see. So we know your next meeting isn't until September 13th. So we would suggest that the board vote to approve of the IMA conditional upon Town Council's final review and comfort with the IMA, with the changes that are being made. We're almost there, and you have in your packet the initial IMA that was proposed by CMRPC, and I think I can just summarize basically what the issues were. Mostly, Town Council wants to make sure that everything in there is covered as opposed to making sure that it states that there are going to be 6 members, making sure that the majority states it's going to be 4, making sure that it talks about the funding and what would happen should it get dissolved. So those are the types of things that he's proposed language for that. I think the latest revisions came in today from Attorney Hennigan. So he's going to be, or Darlene's going to be sending them to CMRPC. Does that kind of summarize it?
Absolutely.
Okay. Anything I missed that you want to add?
I think we're almost there, but we want to make sure everything that town council has brought up is satisfied before we sign the final document.
Board members have any questions? So is this document is from CMRPC, so this is something just like a boilerplate that if they're presenting something? Because I was a little concerned with page 4 under item 5 about continuing this program after the grant funds went through, and we didn't discuss that, so I don't want to commit myself 3 years early to something that, I don't want to, I may not even be here in 3 years, but I don't want to commit my successors to anything either within 3 years. So I think for myself, for my own comfort level, I mean, it's got to be very clear that, we are not endorsing other than we're starting this for a 3-year period. So for my comfort level, I would like to see that taken out before I agree to something, because again, it's great if we want to continue this and this really works well, and I think, I'm sure we have more work than hands to do the work, so I'm certainly happy to see if we can, do this, but again, I don't want to commit myself or any of my potential successors to something 3 years ahead of time. So that's my only ask, is that we take that out, and beyond that, I'm fully comfortable with the professionalism at the staff level that you can, work out the wheres and what fors and all that good stuff, because you've been doing it for a little while now.
So, if I may. Thank you very much for that question. That was actually one of the items that town council had done. I'm just going to call it like round 1. So that was kind of discussed, and Attorney Hennigan did identify, we want to make sure that it's crystal clear. So the good thing about this particular grant is, honestly, there is no financial commitment from the town for 3 years. What happens after 3 years, and I completely understand your concern, and honestly, we have concerns too. We don't want to be overcommitted as well. I think you referred to page 4, section 5. So that you may not have the most updated version as of like 5 o'clock today, but Attorney Hennigan did put in the language that the grant is set to expire June 30th, 2024, and we would need an amendment to extend beyond that grant, beyond that date, I'm sorry. So your concerns honestly are the same as Attorney Hennigan's, as ours, and we absolutely don't want to go any further until we know what would happen after that. Now, that doesn't mean that CMRPC, as kind of like the coordinator of the 6 towns involved, they obviously are going to try to find ways to see if this would work financially for the towns, but there's absolutely no commitment that we go beyond that date if we don't make an amendment to this IMA. So again, this is not the final version. We're not recommending this gets signed until all of Attorney Hennigan's concerns have been, vetted, and we're comfortable with the language. This is a part of the state has gone through some growing pains in the past year and a half, and so this is a public health excellence grant trying to give more help to boards of health obviously we need it. So this is hopefully a good faith effort, that we think that we can get some benefit for. It's really kind of, do we like the services that we're getting? Does that answer your question?
If the agreement is amended, does that come back to a future Board of Selectmen, or is that something that's done at the staff level?
Through the chair, IMAs have to be approved by each Board of Selectmen in each of the participating communities. So unless and until the board were to vote that you're authorizing the extension, which you're not, we're not asking for that, it would have to come back to each board.
Thank you for the work on that too. That's a lot. That's a lot of lift to do, and working with all those towns, I'm sure, is not an easy thing to get everybody to agree to. So
I'll make a motion to approve the intermunicipal agreement for shared services, grant conditioned on final review by town council and conditioned on that the contract doesn't obligate the town to fund it in the future without approval of the town.
A second.
Motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? It's unanimous.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Darlene.
Mr. Chairman, can I just ask that we move up 9C while we have the Director of Public Health here?
I'll entertain a motion to move up agenda item 9C.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. This is a discussion and vote on the date for the volunteer recognition event for Monday, September 20th, 2021, or Monday, October 18th, 2021.
Through the chair, if I can add those dates, I just want to tell you why we came up with those dates. Working with the town clerk, we tried to make sure we found dates that we didn't have Board of Commission meetings already scheduled or regularly scheduled, because you're having this event to invite them. So we want to make sure it's not on the night. So there was one committee that tentatively does meet on that Monday, but they said it was Economic Development Committee, and they said they're more than willing to hold it on another night. They weren't married to that specific date. So those are the dates that we came up with, that also myself and the chair were available to participate, as well as not having any board meetings or any other board and committee meetings.
I don't have dates. With the current public health situation being so uncertain, I wanted to get a read from you as to, personally, I don't know that I even feel comfortable as a selectman holding this event with what's going on with the health situation. So I know you don't have a crystal ball that you're hiding in the office, but I would like your advice as to, what we could do to make this a safe event. And I know we've usually done a buffet, and that's always been done well, but obviously we're in a situation where we don't know who's vaccinated, who isn't vaccinated. We may have people coming to the event who don't wear masks. So, I'm concerned principally from a liability standpoint on the town's side, that we're not taking on anything. I know it's a great event. I love the event, but I also want people to be safe and feel safe coming to the event.
So I wish I had a crystal ball. It is challenging. I have to say, not knowing what to expect, and then seeing kind of what's happening with the variants from the COVID-19 and the kind of the mutations from the variants. So I do think that it is uncertain how the landscape will look in a month from now. And certainly, I think that the board knows that we can modify and change according to what health recommendations come down from the state at that point. I think that there are some towns that are doing additional mask advisements. I think that some boards of health are starting to look at that, depending on what's happening in the community as far as cases. And really, that is a smart move to see what's going on in your community and then take action. I think that for the event, I think the intention of having this is it's a really nice event to be able to thank people and be able to interact with people and, really be able to have some community. For the buffet that we usually, I know that we usually have some sort of buffet, you can make some changes on that. It can be all packaged, almost like a box lunch, like a goodie bag. We can do something like that. There can be, typically we do use this room just because it is a larger room. You can look at whether or not, if you're going to have a certain number of people, if we need to, cap that, depending on what's happening in the community at that point. There's also some kind of creative events and things that we've looked at, possibly weather permitting, maybe we could have it outside, depending on the time or the area. We have done some other events like that. It's a little bit, sometimes people are a little bit more comfortable being outside. So it may make some modifications to make people feel a little bit more comfortable if needed. Again, depending on what's happening at the time. Masks obviously can be worn, but we don't have the mask requirement at this time. Obviously, that can change, just as we've seen over the past year and a half, things can change coming down from the state. So obviously, we can keep you updated. Happy to look at, any creative ways to try to add more public health measures that might be utilized if needed.
My feeling is we should postpone this until maybe the spring. That way, we're not taking staff time away from something that, again, is a joyous event and we all enjoy going to. But I would rather not have staff taken away from something, however minor it might be. We can always have this event. We've had it in the fall, but that doesn't mean we can't have it in the spring. So I don't know what other board members feel like. But to me, I would just, because of the uncertainty, and I don't want anybody coming or not coming because they just don't feel comfortable. So, that's the nice thing. We can't do a tree lighting in April. Well, we could try. We might get some snow. And if you have cocoa and cookies, I think you'll get a sellout crowd. But for this one, I would say that I would like to see us hold off until, just so that we can get a better idea of what the health climate's going to be. And again, I don't think we should, even on a tangential basis, take the staff away from other functions that, clearly are much more high priority than this.
Other board members have any comments?
Through the chair, that seems prudent to me. We don't have a crystal ball, we don't know, so it seems probably safest to just wait till the spring on this matter.
All right. Seems to be an agreement on that. So with that, I'll entertain a motion to postpone indefinitely until spring or until we have a better idea of what the health outlook might be regarding the variant.
Motion that we table this item until at least February of 2022 to see where we're at as far as the health and other situations that we might be facing.
Second.
Motion been made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It's unanimous.
Thank you.
gentlemen.
Thank you. Thanks, Melanie. Stay well.
Back to Regular agenda, proclamations and recognitions, we have none. Revisit the discussion on the start time for Board of Selectmen meetings and a potential vote to start at 6:30. I did get a chance to speak to Mr. Berthium before he left, and he noted that 6:30 would be okay with him now. That I know he had trouble before when we last talked about this, but that's an easier time for him. For myself, I can also do 6:30, but I'll turn things over to the town manager. I know this is something that you've really
Through the
wanted to-
chair, I have been, and I know the board talked about it last time, and I just want to throw a couple of possible suggestions out. If we did start at 6:30, so tonight it's a little bit of an example, but having to have some of the employees till 8:30 at night, it's in, I think 2 weeks ago it was 9:30 at night, we still had employees here. So my suggestion would be, if we did start at 6:30 and not all the members could be there at that time, we could move items up that are not, don't require a vote, or are not that, they're more informational items. A lot of the town manager items being at the end of the agenda, we could move those up, especially if it's information on upcoming concert or something like that, until that member got there. And the other thought was, at 6:30, I think it would be more efficient for the time of our employees too. A lot of times you do take items out of order to get them in. The building's open till 7 on Mondays, so the employees are here anyway. It might be a little easier to get some of them here. We also might not, it doesn't happen often, but we run into an occasion where we have to have an employee stay, and it is, there is a minimum callback on it, or an overtime issue depending on the employee that stays. I think we can eliminate that by starting at 6:30, because at least those employees could maybe be called up earlier and allowed to leave. And again, I'm happy to move town manager items up on the agenda all the time, or just if you want to take them out of order, and make sure that if a member says that they can't get there till 7, I would suggest that we don't even necessarily have to post any public hearings until 7. We can wait until 7 for all the public hearings for those members that can't get here till 7. But it might be a nice way to get rid of some of the administrative items at 6:30 and let the employees go home, and then get to some of the items that the board has for public hearings. And also with the hybrid, it has been nice for the public to be able to log in instead of having to come here. But we have heard some members of the public, they can't stay very late at night. And if the agenda goes on, and it's 8:30, 8:45, and we still have people presenting or waiting for an item, that's a long night for them too. So we're just trying to find a way to make it so it works for all of your schedules individually, and make it so it also works for the public who wants to come in, and not too early for the public, but then again, not too late. And I think we all saw what happened a couple weeks ago. It was just a big agenda, and that's going to happen. We're going to have nights that we're going to be in and out in an hour, and some nights it's going to be 3 hours. And even tonight, by the time we're done, it'll be close to 3 hours, because we started technically at 6 with executive session. So I had asked if you could just think about it again, because I know a couple of members had mentioned to me that 6:30 would work with them. And if it doesn't, that's okay, but I was just trying to find a way to make it work for those who could do 6:30, and make it work for those who maybe can't get here that night until 7. Sometime.
Board members have, I know we've talked about this before, and we've had some issues with starting a little bit earlier before 7, so will the hybrid method alleviate any of those? What are board members' thoughts?
For me, the hybrid doesn't, because what I do is not, for right now, we can meet at 6:30 or 6:15 or whatever, because I'm working from home. But at some point, that's going to change. So, and at any given time, I could be anywhere in the state, and I get 3 days' notice. So I can't tell you, I can't give you my calendar for the month and say, oh, okay, on these 2 days is no problem. But I know this has been part of the policy book since before I was elected, but maybe obviously we can move it up, but maybe it makes sense to take a good look at it and see if, as the manager is suggesting, to me, anytime someone's here for something, we should take them first anyways, because they want to talk to us, or they need to talk to us for whatever reason. We could not have public comment right at the top of the meeting, try and put that maybe 3 or 4 on the agenda, and then, because that's something that half the time I've been on the board, nobody's been here for public comment. I would like that to change, but I think, we do give it twice in the agenda, but my preference would be for people who want to talk to us and have an agenda item to put them first. Personally.
Yeah, I know your answer.
Quarter mile, house, quarter mile, I guess.
I'm fine with 6:30 as well, so whatever works for the other members is fine.
So we can start at 6:30 then, or at least the upcoming ones, and then when, Dan, you can let us know when you're going back in, and we can work from there to see if we have to go back.
You just do if it became a problem for any member, obviously.
Right, yeah, we would
Push it back
accommodate, yeah. And then I can work with the town manager to change the schedule around. Yeah, definitely public comment. It's a good point. Doesn't need to be at the top, but, all right.
Anything we can do to get people up front, even like presentations, because I know, they spend a lot of time on the presentations, and you hate to say to them, you got to wait till 8:30, and you feel like, I've been sitting in there many times as a planning board member, having to present to the Board of Selectmen, and by the time you're called, not that it's anybody's fault, your energy is not exactly at its height. So I'd rather see people when they're at their best rather than, after a very long day.
Well, if there's nothing else, then we also have the potential vote on the revised draft of the hybrid remote participation policy.
Through the chair, can I just verify? So for now, moving forward, at least for the near future, we'll start the meetings at 6:30 and then revisit it as we need to. And also, I would suggest we look at the agendas every week, and maybe we could start to move some things around too, because we do try to put the presentations up front, but every now and then they're up front, but you had a public hearing that was scheduled for 7, so it bumps it. So maybe even those could start at 6:30. So I think it's going to work out very well all around for people who are participating. So I thank you for at least considering it and giving it a try. We're grateful, and if it doesn't work, as Selectman Wren said, we're happy to go back to 7. We've always done that, but we're just saying we found a way to be more efficient for a lot of reasons, and now we're just kind of falling back into the same old schedule again that maybe we don't have to. So we're grateful to at least give it a try.
Right, so the potential vote on the revised draft of the hybrid remote participation policy. So now the members have had a chance to review it in more detail. Do members have any questions or comments?
I would just ask that the sections in red be, that's my sole interest. I think it's well written, and, every board is going to have to make their decision, but at least this lets them know that we're in agreement with the hybrid model for the time being, and hopefully they can make it work for them. I know we've had technical issues here through no fault of anybody, so.
And through the chair, we are, I don't need to speak for Mike Marino, our IT director, and Chris Hugo, our cable manager, but they did have another meeting today, still looking at some equipment upgrades, some other types of equipment we need, so when people stand at the podium, they could be heard. So you saw, we're all running around with this little gadget here, trying to get it closer to the speaker. So they are still looking to make some upgrades. So I think as we move forward, we have until April that we are able to do this, and it may well get extended after April, permanently even. So we are still looking to make upgrades to make it a little less difficult. Again, you heard some of the audio issues we have. For the most part, it was much better this meeting, I think, than the last meeting.
Right, yeah.
So I think that was helpful, but hopefully, in the next month or so, we should be able to get some equipment upgrade too. So it'll make it even easier for people to have hybrid meetings.
That's through the CARE Act funds too, right? That's
through the chair. Yes, it's through that, and there's money through the CARES Act, and there's money through ARPA for upgrades for things directly related to it. So yeah, this is no cost to the taxpayer to do this, but the taxpayer will reap the results because we'll be able to get the equipment and be much more open and have more opportunity for communication.
I'll just say that I appreciated at least the second edition, that the IT department will work with, any board and commission that wants to or needs assistance, because from what we saw, that's probably likely. So with that, I'll entertain a motion.
I'd make a motion that we accept it as revised.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? It's unanimous. Under tabled items, we have the process to change the name for the Auburn Board of Selectmen to Select Board. We've discussed this for a while now, and at our last meeting, we had asked if we could get any other potential updates as to whether or not we may not have to change the charter, but I'll turn things over to the town manager.
Thank you. So I'm still looking for some other cases that would mirror our form of government, because some of the ones that I found don't apply because their charter was developed or don't have a charter, which that's the whole problem is we not a problem, but we do have a charter, so we can't follow the process that someone who doesn't have a charter followed. So I do have a meeting scheduled with town council tomorrow. He was away last week and he's back, and we're meeting tomorrow, and this is one of the items on the agenda. So if you could just continue to table it. I think this is going to take some time. I don't think it's something we're going to have an answer for you right away. His initial response to me was, you do need to amend the charter. And he had prepared a letter for the Board of Trustees of the library that we want to take a look at and see if anything needs to be expanded upon for your purposes specific to this, or if that letter would suffice. So anyway, we're going to be talking about it tomorrow. And then based on that, I know Selectman Berthium had mentioned last time maybe we could get some examples, but he also said he doesn't want to put a lot of effort into if it's not going to help. So I think I'd rather make sure that I'm going down the right path with town council before I start looking at examples that may not be applicable to Auburn because we have a different form of government.
Board members?
No, it almost seems like a technical question, because to me, and again, I'm not a lawyer, have had no legal training, but to me, to change Board of Selectmen to Select Board, to me, that's like changing the titles of something. I mean, I don't see why, but again, I'm not a lawyer and I've not had any legal training, but to me, that's a technical matter that you're just you're not changing the powers of the board, you're just changing the name. So it's sad that it's such a seemingly complicated process for something that is so minor of a change. It's not changing the board, it's not changing our responsibilities, it's simply updating a name that some people are not so hip on these days. So, I mean, personally, it doesn't bother me one way or the other if we keep it but, I do see that a lot of communities are doing it, so why not at least try? But thank you for researching it and everything else. I've been researching that section of the tax law, and I don't know why lawyers like to write the way they do, but, I think they all need to go to English class and just write plain English.
But through the chair, and I looked at it again, I still think that you can call yourselves the select board. What you're talking about is making a legal change on legal documents. So when you go to sign a legal document, if it remains the same, it's going to say Board of Selectmen, you're going to sign under it. But for all practical purposes, speaking here, speaking anywhere, as long as you're not signing a legal instrumentation, and Attorney Wren could probably verify that it's more of a legal term, you can really call yourselves whatever you'd like. And as you know, in my emails, ever since the day I got here, I've always just said, Mr. or Madam Chair and members of the Select Board, because there have always been members of the Select Board who are female. So it's never been an entire male board since I've been here. So I've always written it that way. And that's still perfectly acceptable. You can do that publicly without having to make the name change. You can still, maybe you can vote to even just adopt it to use in a non-legal manner or something. Maybe that's an option.
Non-legal documents.
I agree with both of you. It's minor in nature, but if it were deemed not to be administrative, that's a road I will never vote to go down, because it's a strange that structurally changes. We have to open up our constitution, so to speak, our charter, and that's a very big step that I just don't take lightly. I mean, the threshold or the standard needed for me, it has to be very, very compelling. And this, not to belittle, because I call it select board myself, but I just wouldn't open the charter for that kind of matter. I just wouldn't. So.
Anything else? Yeah, I would agree with what's been said. I mean, I can't see how this would be something that anyone would deem as more than an administrative change. Then you wouldn't have to open the whole charter up. It sounds like we'd still like to meet with the town's attorney and see, but hold off on going down the route of looking at examples.
Yeah, I will talk to him again tomorrow. I can say that initially, the reasoning behind it is because our charter establishes the Board of Selectmen. So what happens is, and I don't know if I'm saying it correctly in legal terms, but without a charter, everything is established by Mass General Law. Once you have a charter, it's established by your charter. So your constitution, your governing document is the charter, and it established a Board of Selectmen of 5 members. It didn't establish a select board of 5 members. So while it is likely to be an administrative change, it's still my understanding that it's a legal change that has to go through the legislature in the form of a couple of different ways to amend a charter. And Attorney Hennigan said maybe because it is administrative, once it got to the Attorney General's office, they may say you don't have to go back to the full electorate to vote on it, but to get to that point, you still have to have a charter review committee, you still have to go to town meeting, you still have to go to the legislature, you still have to get the because you are making, even if it's an administrative change, you can't even make an administrative change to your charter without going through it legislatively. So that's how it was explained to me. I will, again, I'll talk to him tomorrow to see if I'm misunderstanding this, if maybe I misread it or I misinterpreted it, if he can give me something in writing, but that was my understanding. And that was my understanding of the 1 or 2 communities that I did find, they did it the exact same way because they had a charter and they had to amend their charter. So even, I've seen a couple of things in the charter that are basically they're typos, but you really have to open it even to make administrative changes, because that is your constitution. You can't change it. It is written as it was approved by the voters. So that's, I think, what the difference is. But again, I'm more than happy to talk to town council. Just make sure I didn't misunderstand or that he doesn't see another mechanism for doing this. And again, maybe it's something that could just be as simple as saying, look, we're not going to do this legally. We're not going to change the charter. But as a matter of course, let's put in all our flyers. Let's put in our website. Let's just call ourselves the select board. And maybe it can be accomplished that way. Everybody wave.
It works a lot better than it used to.
You didn't wave.
It used to go out every couple of minutes.
So anyway, I'm going to have that conversation tomorrow, and I'll get back to you. So that's the only reason I didn't come back with concrete examples, because before I start looking, I need to know what I am looking for. All right, thanks.
So we'll leave this on as a tabled item. Yep. All right. Board of Selectmen member items, we have none, and we have the minutes from June 14th and June 18th, 2021. Are there any corrections or omissions? Seeing none, I'll accept them as read. Before we log off, I do see that there's a caller on, so I just want to address, because they haven't, I don't know if that's a holdover.
And it could be our IT department. Sometimes they'll log in just to make sure that we're all set and that we don't need help, and it may not show up as that, but you can double check.
All right, so caller 2, or if there's anyone on the line, do you have any public comments before we adjourn? All right, seeing none, I'll entertain a motion.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? It's unanimous. Thank you. Good night.
Good night.